Welcome back to another edition of Analyst Hour here on the ASL podcast. I believe this is episode 4. Mike and I are recording this currently Wednesday night, unites before doubleheader weekend, which is no surprise. This is going to be, or has the potential to be, a very pivotal day in terms of a lot of teams' projections, playoff hopes, as well as hopefully clinching a spot for some of those teams out there. So, Mike, we're definitely going to dive into it. But if you don't remember last episode, only half of week 2 was concluded. And luckily, we have a commissioner in the house who attended both. He's definitely the commissioner of the week, attended both matchups. So, Mike, have the floor and run us through, give us the headlines, give us the takeaways. And of course, this is Analyst Hour. So I want you to analyze both of these games, and then I'll chime in with my 2 cents from what I've seen on the live and what I see on the stats.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, did you catch either of the games as well?
I caught the very, 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 very end of, Hatamoto's Hellkites.
Yeah, the one that was on.
I
Yeah,
caught the very end of that, and then I did not see I did not see the Pride Galaxy game. So that's all you. I just have the stats in front of me. I'll probably end up asking you questions if the stats really did that player justice on how they played.
All right, so let's start with the game of the season thus far, Pride versus Galaxy. You had Steven Shaw, Power Shambo, and Steve Troy, as Costa was missing, and the Galaxy were missing. Who were they missing? And they were missing Dan Gerges due to his travels. So it was a 3v3 matchup, no subs. Everyone had to give it their all. The Galaxy came out swinging. I forget what they were up, but they jumped out to a quick, I want to say 7-2 lead. They came out swinging. Connor Fu looked as good as he's ever looked. I thought Matt Schuerk in particular, he was the most aggressive I've ever seen him in the ASL. And that was my big critique of Matt Schuerk last year, because obviously a great defender, great rebounder. He's not the best three-point shooter, and he leaned on settling for threes because teams clogged the paint because he's so good at driving. This year, he hunted mismatches. I mean, every possession, he hunted Pat Arsh, and the second that he got that matchup, he found himself space in the post, and he made Connor and Luke's job incredibly easy, especially considering the fact that he's an athlete. If you throw that ball up, he's going to come down with it. So incredible performance by Matt Schuerk. Much higher IQ play than what he did last season, so he should give himself a pat on the back. Luke wasn't great, but he also wasn't detrimental. I definitely expected more off-ball movement from Luke after his bodily transformation. We really haven't seen that. He's honestly playing relatively the same. I think he went 1 for 4. Like, he wasn't awful, but he didn't really stand out in any particular way, except for the fact that all of his shots are line drives, which is crazy. And if we look at the Pride, I mean, it's what it's been the past 3 years.
I had the box score in front of me. It looks like the Steven show.
That you took the words out of my mouth. It was the Steven Shaw show. He was my pick for player of the week. He scored 17 points. I'm not sure what other stats, but he put the team on his back. As I said, the Galaxy, they started out hot. Steve Shaw battled back. The Galaxy pulled up to another run. They were up 15-11. Next thing you know, it's 19-15, and it was basically entirely Steve Shaw. I mean, Pat Arch actually lost one of his contacts at the beginning of the game, so he was a bit nullified. Steve Troy, I mean, you know what you're going to get from Steve Troy. He actually had really good positioning on a feed from Pat Arch and a layup. So he did a great job getting under Luke's skin defensively, poking the ball out. But yeah, just an incredible game. Galaxy pulling ahead.
I got the box score ahead of me. Steven Troy led the league. Led the game in steals with 2, and didn't have a turnover. Him and Matt Schuerk were the only 2 players that didn't have turnovers. And we talk about efficiency a lot because it is make it take it. So each possession is that much more valuable. Now, you obviously saw the game. Pratty had 3 turnovers. He led the league with 3. Led the game with 3. Did those come at vital times? You said he wasn't detrimental, which I totally believe. Because if you have 3 turnovers in the first 3 minutes, it doesn't really matter. But situational basketball is a thing. He did have 3 turnovers. Was that a big deal?
I wasn't aware. I don't remember of any of them being at costly times, but I do remember 2 of them were Steve Troy showcasing his active hands. And You got to
Of
give him credit because a
course.
lot of people say Steve Troy isn't a good defender. People call him a good defender because he doesn't have any other skill sets. No, he played like a well above average ASL defender that game on Luke. So shout out to Steve Troy, and that's basically all I got for that game. Do you want to chime in, or should I go to the next game?
Just looking at it here, it looks like in terms of the pride, everyone kind of played their part. The Steven show, 17 points, 14 rebounds, an incredible outing. But unfortunately, because he is so good, the standards are, he doesn't really get a gold star for Steven doing what Steven is supposed to do. Archambault, 5 assists. I don't want that to go under the rug. 5 assists is really impressive. 3 points, 4 turnovers, 1 steal, 1. Oh, I'm so sorry. 3 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, and 1 turnover. Like, that's a pretty good outing, especially when Stephen Shaw is your star. So definitely hats off to him. And we already talked about Stephen Troy. Connor Fu, 13 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 turnovers. Again, that's a very, very good outing. That's a very captain-esque outing. We talked about Schuer, 4 points, 9 rebounds. 9 rebounds is a great outing, but not for Matt Schuer. He's about 20 off from where he should be. But so that means people were either hitting their shots or 1 assist, 1 steal, 0 turnovers. So efficiency is key. And then we talked about Pratty, 1 point, 5 rebounds, which is pretty good. I feel like you say Luke doesn't really move off the ball, which I wasn't there, so I'll take your word for it. But 5 rebounds is something I don't think the old Luke would do. So I think he deserves a bit of applause for that. 1 assist, 1 steal, and then we already talked about those 3 turnovers. So it looks like everyone kind of did their job, and the Pride came out on top. Michael, my question to you is, you were obviously there. So you said they got out to 7-2. It looks like the Galaxy had some hope in winning this game a few times throughout the duration of the game, right? I mean, they only lost by 3 points, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Despite Stephen Shaw's great outing, is he looking more mortal this year? Obviously, last week, we have to kind of put an asterisk on it. But is Stephen Shaw looking more beatable this year? And I'm not talking about particular performance, because I think he's on track to have a better year statistically than he had last year. But
as a team,
close.
So I think you could look at it 2 ways. One of them being Steve Shaw. I mean, that he only won by 3. He went down twice. Easily could have lost that game. Easily could have started 0-2. There is definitely that argument that the Pride are more mortal. And honestly, that I think I'm on that side. But you could also look at it as that, look, the Galaxy, they played their absolute best game. They got up to 2 big leads, and Steve Shaw still did it himself, which is honestly could be even more terrifying. So you really could look at it either way. I think they are more mortal. Granted, they were missing Costa. The Galaxy were missing Dan Gerges. Costa is obviously the bigger loss in that situation, so it's just something else to consider, even though he didn't have a great performance week 1 either. But yeah, I think it's more them being mortal, but also it's like, wow, like the Galaxy played an incredible game, jumped out to leads, could have closed them out, and Steve Shaw still found a way to do it himself.
Okay, all right. I think you answered that very well on both camps. Now we can hop into the Spartans versus Pack.
It's Hellkites.
Oh,
Hellkites versus
yeah,
Hatamoto.
I was like, wait, I did see this game. Hellkites Hatamotos. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so we're gonna start with the good, because I was just as pleased with the Hatamotos as I was disgusted with the Hellkites. So we are gonna start with the Hatamotos, and for Jack Curtin, he is the perfect ASL captain. He's not unfair, but he is incredible. He gets everyone involved. He communicates. They are a well-oiled machine. Germano, they didn't even know that they were losing Cole Chingaris. He didn't end up showing up. I'm not sure what happened there, to be honest. But Germano and Carter were always in the right place at the right time.
Germano had 6 assists.
Yeah, but the thing,
That's
honestly,
crazy.
That is crazy, because it feels like I would have guessed that Jack Curtin, and he still would have 21 PRF. That's points responsible for those who don't know.
Trust me,
So,
I know.
that's what I would have guessed. So I don't even know if all of his assists were to Jack, but really, like, it was just Jack. It was, you have if you need to pay a lot of attention to him, but don't pay too much, because the second you pay too much attention to him, Carter has a wide open layup in the paint. It's really, they're a well-oiled machine. Props to Jack props to Carter too for knowing how to use his size, being in the right place. Like he's still, yeah, he's 6'5", but he's playing very high IQ basketball, and he deserves credit for that, being at the right place at the right time. And
Before you give the Hellkites your spiel, I gotta say this, and again, hats off to Hatamoto's. I think a very telling statistic in a 3v3 with the fourth man basketball game is your assist totals, because that's telling us how many plays are being created and how many plays are being taken advantage of. They had 12 assists. They led the league in assists. I can now say the league and not the game. They led the league in total assists. They had 12 team assists, and Cole wasn't even out there. So they even though they had 12 assists among 3 guys.
That's crazy.
That's like
maddening.
That over half their points are coming off of assists. That is incredible, and that cannot be swept under the rug. And I loved your analogy where you said about Jack Hurd. You got to pay a lot of attention to him, but the second you put a little bit more attention to him than he deserves, boom, Carter's open, and it's over. And he is an incredible point guard, an incredible playmaker. And I think the Hatamoto's versus Pride game is going to be incredible, because you have the Pride who are just built on talent. And that's not saying they're a bad team or, they don't have a system, but their headline is talent. Mm-hmm. The Hatamoto's who have the talent, right? But I think their success can really be attributed to how well they work together and their system and their formula. So I'm really excited for that matchup down the line. And it hurts to say as a Billies player, but I have my analyst cap on right now. That would be one of the more entertaining finals.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. Hopefully it definitely doesn't get there as a Billies player.
Hopefully
but if it did, it would be incredible for the league.
Yes. Now you can head over to the Hellkites if you'd like.
Yeah. Also, actually, one more thing. Just last thing about the Hatamotos. Their first 2 games, they are outscoring their opponents in the first half 22-4, which is kind of ridiculous.
Oh my God.
So just thought, actually, to make it 23-4. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Kind of a ridiculous stat I wanted to mention on their behalf. But anyway, the Hellkites. So they ended up in the exact same position as the Billies did week 1, where they went down 11-2 at halftime. And what I want to say is with the intention of slandering the Hellkites, not praising the Billies. But those 2 teams responded in completely different ways. Same result, both lost. But you watch the Billies' second half response where they really, shit, we're down, we're going to fight, and at least we're going to do is make this thing respectable if that's all we can do. But we're going to fight, this isn't over. You look at the Hellkites, they had atrocious body language. Awful body language. They looked like the game was over at 9-2. Like they gave up. They gave up. They're hucking up threes. I don't think they didn't drive after the second half. They gave up. They were playing lazy. They were playing selfish. They had tunnel vision, and this goes on all of them, all 3 of them, because that got significant minutes, and we'll get into that. But it's just you don't see teams just give up in the ASL, and I'm sure some of them are going to sit here listening to this and say we didn't give up, we just got outplayed. From what I saw, just the body language, the dropped shoulders, the heads down, the just hucking up threes. It was a tough performance to watch. I do think they have great individual players in that team, and I do think they could bounce back, but I just haven't seen a team give up so early, so fast. It was tough to see. And also, as a 4th man, you're down 19-5. Your 4th man's played 1 minute. Put him in the damn game. You're not going to win. If you clearly have already given up, you've showed it in your body language and your play. Put your 4th man in and give him an opportunity. So
even NBA teams do that. They throw their guys in.
Yeah, and they did make it respectable. Yeah, exactly. It's garbage time. Exactly. Yeah, and they did make it somewhat respectable. They got to 9. They went on a 4-0 run at one point, but like, come on, it was just, yeah, in terms of their effort level, their body language, as I said, and just not playing their 4th man was just, I was very disappointed.
That's a bad taste in your mouth. We'll say.
Yes, to say the least.
All right. Well, yeah, you definitely gave them your 2 cents. Unfortunately, I can't really weigh in other than the stats, and Mike kind of hit everything that needed to be said. And then I guess we'll kind of just shift our focus on a doubleheader weekend. And This is the first scheduled doubleheader weekend in ASL history, so history will be made on Sunday. We have had doubleheader weekends in the past. Oh, sorry, my Siri. I don't know. So there have been doubleheader weekends in the past, but they were not scheduled. We were just victim of circumstances. So Mike, I'm going to go through each, week 3 part 1 and week 3 part 2, and let's just do like a quick analysis on what we think is going to happen for each game. So I have my phone ahead of me. Week 3, game 1 between the Billies and the Galaxies. Tell me what you think is going to happen, and then we'll try to make this quick. And we'll right through. We got 8 games to go through.
I mean, yeah, I have to obviously put my analyst cap on. I mean, just objectively watching the way those two teams have played, you have to go in assuming that the Galaxy are the favorite, and rightfully so, because even though they're 1-1, they kept it close against the ASL GOAT, and as we discussed earlier. So I mean, the Billies really, it's really put up or shut up time for the Billies. You know that you really you have nothing to build on in the first place. Your offense was garbage the past 2 games. Your defense got beat by the same pick and roll 5 times in a row. So it really can't get much worse for the Billies. But the Billies are very talented on paper. They really have no reason to be playing this awful. They need this win more than anyone else. So you really, as an objective analyst, you have to predict the Galaxy are going to come out on top. But there's reason to believe that the Billies could take this one, even on bias.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'll glaze the Billies for a second, and this is something I would have said if I'm not even on this team, because I'm also going to bring another team in it, so I can't say it confidently. Actually, before I get into that, you're 100% right. Galaxy are going to be the absolute favorite, and they deserve to be the favorite. On my analyst cap, it should be a blowout because the Billies have not even broken 16 points. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I don't think anyone in the right of mind would take the Billies in this matchup. However, I think in terms of a team's identity, you have not really seen enough of every team to really pin their identity. So you have the Pack. They obviously haven't been fully staffed, so you don't really know what they're going to bring to the table. You look at the Hellkites. They have played really, really well and really poorly. And then you have the Billies, who do have a great team on paper, but have played really poorly as well. So if the record isn't doing them justice, you don't really know. I think after this weekend, we will get a good sense of every team and where they lie. If the Billies starts 0-4, that's their team. We've seen enough. And that goes for every team. If the Pack come out and go 2-0 as fully staffed, chances are that's their team. That's their identity. But that aside, and we'll put it at this: if the Billies want to win, it's going to have to be a whole Billy. You're gonna get a whole different. They're gonna have to look completely different and really flip the script. But we have no evidence to believe that is going to happen. So this should be a Galaxy blowout. We'll go to the next one. Hatamoto's versus the Spartans. I'll just hop in quick. Again, You don't really know the identity of the Spartans because we've only seen Ian and Nick work together once. But that is a team where every player has pulled their weight and then some. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if they give the Hatamotos a good run for their money. But you got to go off what you've been served, and the Hatamotos are the team to beat. And they don't show any signs of stopping. So you got to go Hatamotos on this one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with basically everything you said. I mean, what's crazy with the Spartans is they had a pretty dominant win over the Pack, but their leading scorer had 7 points, which you don't see very often in an ASL victory in today's game, especially with the captains being far more skilled than the majority of the draftees. So that's pretty incredible. It shows those two teams are the most, use the term well-oiled machine. If you had to pick 2 teams to fit under that term, it would be the Spartans and the Hatamotos. I also have the Hatamotos winning because they've been far more dominant. They've also, continuity is important. They've had 2 games full strength. The Spartans didn't have their captain in the first game, and they were nor their first round pick. So I'm gonna go with the Hatamotos, but it should be a good one, and I do think the Spartans can give them a run for their money.
Absolutely. Now we have the Hellkites and the Pack. These are 2 teams who I just said you don't really know their identity. Looks like the Hellkites kind of let their emotions get best of them, according to you. You said they kind of threw in the towel pretty early, but we also have seen them at their best. And with the Pack, I can't even really add anything because I don't really know what they're going to bring to the table. These are two. You have one team who is very defensive heavy. I'm obviously talking about the Hellkites. And then you have one team that's very offensive heavy, and I'm talking about the Pack. So it's going to be which one beats the other. Going into this game, wait, is Saron coming?
I am not sure actually.
Or we'll
Well,
assume
let's assume that the Pack are going to be full strength for the sake of
yeah,
the
as they
podcast.
should. I mean, you did press agree that you're going to make every game a majority of the games, so I can only assume that all the players are going to make majority of the games. With that said, I gotta go Pack.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, there's no way, no matter how big of an analyst anyone claims to be, that you know what the hell is going on with the Pack and how they're going to play and whatever. We'll see. It's definitely they're the only team in the ASL that has not been full strength yet. So we'll have to see. I just, after seeing that Hellkites performance, left an awful taste in my mouth, as we said earlier. The Pack played pretty poorly against the Spartans. They were also missing their captain, their first round pick, and got a sub who he did a great job. He was a great attitude, showed a lot of effort, but he was never going to account for the loss. I think Brendan was his name. I think
Yes.
this is not slender. This is not a slender in him. He was a great sub. We'd love to have him back in the future. He cannot cover even anything close to the loss of Alex Pascrita and Rang. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to say the Pack just because of how awful the Hellkites were last game rather than anything the Pack have done.
What do you think about the Vikings Pride? I mean, that's the Ali Frazier matchup between Colin Kirkpatrick and Stephen Shaw. What do you think?
I got the Pride. We'll assume both teams are full strength. I mean, yeah, I have the Pride in that one. I think the pick and roll that fooled the Billies over 5 times in a row is not going to fool Steve Shaw 5 times in a row. Steve has also, this season in particular, he's been, at least maybe I'm just noticing it now, maybe it's not much different, but I noticed he's been a lot more active on defense, which is pretty horrifying for the rest of the league. He's been his active hands, active rebounding, all that. So if Steve can take Colin out of the game, then you're relying on Ian, George, and AJ to load the scoring. And all 3 of them are excellent utility guys. They're all great at what they do. They're not going to be able to carry much of the scoring load. I have the Pride. I think it's going to be close, but not too close.
Yeah, you want to hear something crazy? I either think it's going to be a Vikings slip win or a Pride blowout. I think the Pride can show up at 70% and still whoop the Vikings, and the Vikings would have to show up at 110%. But if there's a team to show up at 100%, 110%, it is the Vikings. So I got to commit to my Pride blowout take, but I would not be surprised if the Vikings could also get like a 2-point win over them as well, because the Vikings are a very well coached team. They all feed into each other very well. They're all on the same page out there. And Costa obviously didn't have a good outing week 1, but he's kind of like the dark horse where you're going to, because he had such a bad outing on week 1, it's very easy to forget how good he actually is. And if you're putting obviously Steven on Colin, we'll call that an edge to Steven. You
yes.
put Pat on George or Ian, whoever's going to start.
So if Ian's the starter, you got to put, I feel like you got to put Pat, you got to put Ian on.
You got to put Ian on Pat because AJ has to guard Costa.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
And I would call the Costa AJ matchup, pretty close to a wash, but a little bit edge to Costa in terms of offensive skill. And then I think Pat is going to be a pretty favorable matchup against he's guarding. So head to head, it obviously goes to the Pride, but the Vikings are all on the same page, which goes a long way.
Yes.
Now we'll head over to week 3, part 2, the Vikings and the Pack.
Yeah, I mean, again, we'll try to avoid repeating ourselves here since we're kind of we could give the same analysis about teams, but just in terms of the game itself, again, no idea what to expect from the Pack. The Vikings played incredibly cohesively and incredibly high IQ game. I got the Vikings for that reason. And Colin, as good as Alex Piscurita is, Colin is playing on another level this season too. I think he's averaging a double double if I'm correct.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens. I got the Vikings.
I completely agree. I won't repeat myself too much, but I also have the Vikings.
Yeah.
Hellkites and Pride.
Wonder who I got there.
Yeah, we don't even really need to discuss it. Hellkites are really going to have to play out of this world to even keep it competitive.
I mean,
Uh,
can I just say something? I hope the Hellcats show up and play their asses off and shut me up because I've been giving them a lot of like if they do that, kudos to them. But I just
well, how can
let's
you
see
not
it
look at
happen.
them week one and be like, oh, like this is what they're capable of? They have no
Yeah,
excuse
I
not
need
to
to
look
watch
at
that
it and win the
Hellcats
game.
Vikings games. I can't imagine them beating the Vikings. Like I got to see that game.
Yeah, right. Then we have the Billies and the Spartans. I'll let you hop in quick.
I mean, it's a similar situation where if I'm being an unbiased analyst, after watching that Spartans performance, you'd be an idiot to pick the Billies going into that matchup. But again, I think the Billies do match up with the Spartans better than most, having that clogged interior with Ryan and Z, especially Resendez. He doesn't shoot a lot of threes. He doesn't even shoot a lot of it. He's primarily an attacker. Ian also primarily attacks, um, as does Campbell. So I think the clogging the paint definitely gives the Billies the edge in that regard. But just how well the Spartans played, how they went on a huge run without their captain when he benched himself. It's hard to pick an 0-2 team against them.
100%. I completely agree. And this is my analyst talking. It should be again a Spartans blowout. We haven't seen anything promising from the Billies. If the Billies come out and play well in the game, and game one, talk to me then. But you have no reason to believe that the Spartans are going to lose to the Billies, especially because they're a well-sized team now with the trade with Campbell, which has really panned out. And a lot of people say you're only as bad as your weakest link, and technically their weakest link is Tyler Beraldi, who hasn't been a weak link at all. Again, that's probably the most in-depth team we have, and yeah, I mean that should be a Spartans win. Now we have the final game is Hanamoto's Galaxy. That one should be fun. That is going to be a fast game. You have the two, probably the most athletic. You have Jack Kern, who's probably the most athletic in the league, or one of, and then you have Connor Fu and Matt Schuer, who are up there as well in terms of athleticism. So that's going to be fireworks, no matter the result. Again, I only have to go off what I've been seeing. Hanamoto's look like they're going to be off to a 4-0 start, which hats off to them. It's well deserved, and I could see it being close, but Matt Schuer can definitely take Carter out. He has the capability to do so. So the X factor in that game is probably going to have to be Matt Schuer.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take the upset here just because I think the Galaxy are perfectly built to beat the Hatamotos with Connor Fu, he was the depoy one year. He doesn't get any flowers for his defense anymore. I don't know why. He's still incredible at it. Connor Fu is probably the most equipped player in the league to guard Jack Curtin. And Matt Schuer is up there with the most equipped players to guard Carter Brzezinski. And if you flip it around, I don't know if you could say the same about Carter on Matt or Jack on Connor. I haven't paid enough attention to Jack's defense to really make a statement on it, but I just think
he's a very efficient player. He's
I think
rarely on defense.
yeah, I think the Hatamotos. I mean, I think the Galaxy. Sorry, the Hatamotos are the better team, but I think the Galaxy are just a matchup nightmare for the Hatamotos. So I'm going to take the upset, and I do think
Yeah.
it'll be an incredibly
No,
close
I
game.
like that. Like I said, I'm going to take the Hatamotos. I think they will be the favorite. I'll ask ChatGPT. They'll probably tell me the Hatamotos are the favorite. And I think they should be the favorite going into the game. But you're right. If there's one team to really pull off an upset in terms of this matchup, it would be the Galaxy. Because Matt Schuer can really, really, I think he could really stick it to Carter in terms of, out being more aggressive. He can, kick and jump really high. He's just an athlete.
Overside.
Yeah. So that concludes that. In terms of what this means for the playoff race, which will have to be eyeing playoffs come this Sunday, or concluding this Sunday's festivities. In terms of the East, Vikings, Billies, Hatamotos, and Hellkites. It's unfortunately not a race for first, but it is a race for last between it looking like the Hellkites and the Billies. Based off what I'm seeing, it's fair to say that the Hatamotos are favored to be to lock the first seed. Looking like
Yes.
Vikings are going to be very comfortable as well. And then you have the Hellkites and the Billies. Obviously, Hellkites are more favored to make playoffs because they've won a game, and that's something the Billies haven't done. Uh, um, so it's a race for last in terms of the Eastern Conference. I would love to sit here on Sunday night and have it be a lot more even. And a race for first is always more exciting than a race for last, but we'll see. Jumping over the West, again, it'll probably be a Pride is probably favored to come out of the West. They'll probably lock the first seed. They're favored, I think it's fair to say that they're favored too. Then it's going to be between, I think Spartans are fair. I think Spartan will get at least one win. I don't think they'll go 0-2, but I don't think they'll go 2-0 in their matchups. So I think they'll be pretty comfortable as well.
Oh, sorry.
Was it you who said you don't think the Pack will make the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't.
So you think the Pack will be out and the Galaxy?
Yes, I think the Galaxy. Yeah, and yeah, those teams haven't even played yet. Actually, yeah, no, I think the Galaxy are the better team. I don't even think the Pack are like an awful team. I think they're in a really good conference. We don't really know what to expect from them, but yeah, I don't know. I just they're in such a stacked conference. I think the Pride, the Pack, and the
Spartans
are all better teams. I mean, sorry, the Pride, the Spartans, and the Galaxy are all better teams.
Now, which team do you think is most likely to go 2-0 and 0-2 in this doubleheader weekend?
I think the team most likely to go 0-2 is shocker the Hellkites. But again, they could prove me wrong. They have two tough matchups coming off that effort. They did just play the best team in the league, so who knows? Maybe that could be the outlier for all we know, but we'll have to see. And to go 2-0, I mean, there's no real like awful teams. It's hard to like pick like, oh, this team has the easiest schedule. I'm gonna say the Pride. I think Steve Shaw really felt that in that game. He felt a danger for the first time that he hasn't felt since his rookie season, and that is missing the playoffs. And he made it 1-1. He's fine, but he can't. He's gonna have to be going 100% from minute one. And I think he knows that, and I think he's gonna bring it. And I think that's bad news for his opponents on doubleheader weekend.
I think you're right. Before everyone jumps on you for not saying the Billies to go 0-2, because I thought that's what you were going to say, because that's where I'm probably, as an analyst, it's fair to say that the Billies could go 0-2 in this doubleheader weekend. I do think it's unlikely. Yeah. But yeah, I think the Hellkites, again, we don't really know the Hellkites because we've seen them play really well and we see them play really poorly. And they played really well against a really good team and really poorly against the best team. So I can't really get a read on them. I don't think they might go 0-2, but I don't think it's fair to say that they're the most likely to go 0-2 because I think the Pack Hellkites game is going to be a lot closer than we think. I think it's fair to say the Billies are the favorite to go 0-2 in this case. I don't think anyone will go 0-2 to be honest, but if we're talking about in terms of 0-2, Galaxy are a top 3 team in the league going against the worst team in the league. They'll probably beat the Billies. They should beat the Billies. And then you have the Spartans, who again they played really well last week, but you can't really get a read on them either. Playing against the worst team in the league, which are the Billies. So I think it's safe to say that if there were to be an 0-2 team, it might be the Billies. But the Billies are saved by not going up against like the Pride. Yeah, they're going against the Galaxy, which is the second powerhouse in that conference, because these are all out of conference matchups, mind you. So they're kind of going against the right-hand man powerhouse. But I think a Billies versus Pride would kind of be a guarantee law. I mean, that would almost be a guarantee.
Yeah.
From an analyst, as hard as it is to admit. I think, yeah, the Pride are definitely favored to go 2-0. It's just the Pride.
Yeah.
The Hatamotos could go 2-0 as well, but they have that hard matchup against the Galaxy.
Yes.
And then, yeah, if The Phillies are really gonna. I'll go through every team. The Phillies are gonna have to have a stampede type of turnaround, as the Stampede did start 0-3 last year and then made it to the finals. So they're really gonna need that. You're gonna have to blow up that playbook and make a new one. Hatamoto's got to keep playing their energy, keep playing their game. Even if they lose, don't you can't if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you lose a game, no one's gonna go 7-0. So again, like they got to keep their shoulders head and their head held high if they lose. Hellkites, I can't really get a read on the Hellkites. I'm sorry, but if Michael's saying you played really bad week 2, I know you played well week 1, so just get in touch with your week 1 roots and you should be fine. Vikings, keep what you're doing, win or lose. They're a well-oiled machine. Galaxy, that's another team that kind of has their shit figured out. They got to keep what they're doing, win or lose. Spartans, they played really well. I don't know if they played out of their boots in terms of like, did they play better than they actually were? But I have no reason to believe otherwise. So I guess keep doing what you're doing. My only issue with the Spartans is it's kind of easy to read their offense because you said that, like you said, there's no big 3-point shooters. No one's really stretching the floor with them. So I'd maybe add that to the game. Pride, I don't really need to wait. Get Costa involved. Make sure get Costa his shots because he can really take some offensive pressure off of everyone else. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, just what? Just an overview. I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
just like, do you agree or disagree with anything I said, or you want to
I
add?
really, I really, nothing stood out that I disagree with. I understand saying that the 0-2 team should be the most likely team to lose both games, and maybe there's a little. If I genuinely do think the Billies are a better team than the Hellkites, I think that places them third in the conference objectively. But that's how I feel, and that's why I picked them to. I picked the Hellkites to finish worse. On top of the fact that the Hellkites have an arguably tougher schedule too, but we will see.
Got it. All right, now we'll come to the novelty segment as we always do. Today we are going to be talking about, we'll do a little ASL reminisce. Michael and I want to go through each of the past winners and talk about what that team was, if we expected it, and kind of just share some memories regarding that roster. So
Yeah.
obviously, inaugural season, Mike, you're the ASL historian. Go through it.
Yeah, so the Ethnics were probably the most dominant team in ASL history. Funny as it was, they finished their regular season 8-1. And they didn't lose a game in the playoffs, so that's about as dominant as it gets. I know Ian and Arvin are the ones who won the ring, but Tequeezy's name should be right there. He was their permanent sub, and he played 7 of their 9 regular season games, and he perfectly complemented Ian, arguably better so than Arvin did, even though Arvin's the better individual player. So Tequeezy deserves a lot of credit for that ring. But yeah, they were really just a well-oiled machine. No one in that league compared to Ian's skill or IQ wise. So it really was just the league was almost over before it started. And you give him Arvin as his teammate, and it was not much you could do. So they're just an incredible season. And Arvin finished it incredibly with that Finals MVP, which no one saw
Very
coming.
impressive.
Which
Very
no one
impressive.
saw coming.
Outshine Iron.
Yeah,
And
and
the
Ian
goal
let it
was,
happen.
yeah. Yeah, I took the words right out of my mouth. It was a great season for them. Obviously, they were the favorite to win, and they did. Uh, and really hats off to Arvin for like showing up 3 times and making those 3 times memorable. Except the first week. Didn't he shoot like 1 for
Well,
20?
yeah, so yeah, we actually used to keep track of shooting percentage, and Arvin, in his ASL debut in the first week in ASL history, shot 1 for 21, and yet Ian still carried them to a win.
Yes. So
That tells you all you
he
need to
made
know
up
about
for
the
he
Ethnics.
made up for that in the championship.
He did, but that's all you need to know about that team.
Week or the second champions, Inferno. Mike, you were on that
Inferno,
roster.
yes,
I'm sure you
yes.
remember a
I will
lot of it.
gladly reminisce on the Inferno season. So one thing to
If I'm not
keep in
mistaken, the
mind.
drafted team was different than
I was just about to say. So that league was unique in the fact that there was a thing called value points, and each player was graded by a certain value point. So like Steve Shaw would be like a 7, if like I would be like a 2.5. And there was a cap and everything, and we never have allowed cutting players in the ASL, but you could agree to a buyout where if both sides decided they wanted to part ways, then they were allowed to as long as your addition stayed under the cap. So the Inferno was started as Colin, Rang, myself, and Luke. Luke requested a trade after a humiliating week 1 loss.
to who?
Trade Luke what?
Who did Luke lose to week one?
Luke was traded to Lob City in
No, but who
exchange
did
for
he lose
Tyler.
to in a humiliating fashion week one?
Oh my god, we lost to Extra Crispy actually. Miss who was Emmett, Andrew, Sean, and Armand, but the issue was they didn't have Emmett, and yeah, but
I went first.
so yeah, we flipped Luke for Tyler Baraldi. Tyler and the team agreed to a buyout, and Arvin was picked up as a free agent because him and Rishi agreed to a buyout. So you turned Luke into
That year
Arvin.
was crazy.
Yeah, that you turned Luke into Arvin, among all the other crazy things that happened that league. You turned
Yeah.
Luke into Arvin, became the best team on paper, and even though they finished, they had a terrible regular season. Or we had a I'll say we because it's not the season.
Yeah.
We had a terrible regular season, but we played so damn well in the playoffs, and no one was stopping us, and that is why we won the title.
Is that back when every team made the playoffs?
Yes, every team made the playoffs. There was 3 seeds in each conference. The
Oh my
one seed
God,
got
yeah,
the
you guys
bye.
beat us again without Emmett.
The one seed
Um,
got yes, the one seed got the bye, and the 2 seeds are with a 1-0 lead against the 3 seed in a best of 3 series.
nice. And all right, the third year was another 2v2, which was pretty embarrassing if you were an ASL player because we were what, juniors or sophomores? Seniors? Were we
We were
seniors?
seniors. We were seniors.
And who won that year?
Well, it happened to be Wonton Soup, which consisted of Nick Germano and none other than Neil Chowdhury. And yes, that is Ian Chowdhury's younger
He was
brother
in
for those who are
eighth
curious.
grade at the time.
He was in 8th grade. He did play AAU. He came in and he just murdered all of us, made us look bad, and then beat his brother in the final as for the cherry on top. So, but I mean, Ian looked just as bad as everyone else in the league. Like we all looked terrible letting an 8th grader run our league. It also that 2018 fall league was by far the worst ASL season too, just in terms of
Ouch.
effort wise and all that. But that's not a dig at the effort of Germano and Neil. I mean, Germano really let Neil do his thing, and he played a perfect role. He had most games Germano guarded the best matchup. So it's not like Germano just watched Neil carry him to a win. Germano was on the best matchup a lot of those times because he's obviously an incredible defender. So he did pull his weight, but it was really the Neil show, and he embarrassed all of us and started his own league.
Yeah, pretty embarrassing. All right. The next season was that us?
Yeah, next season was the dad bods. Andrew, I will let you take this one away.
Well, no, I want you to go through the dad bod season because then I don't want to hop in and just talk about how great we were, but I do want to kind of make fun of us. So you talk first.
Yeah, so you have the dad bods consisted of it was the Billies, but instead of Nick Solanskis, we had Luke Pratty. So that makes it Ryan, Andrew, myself, and Luke. Interesting team. That sometimes looked like the worst team in ASL history. It sometimes looked incredible. You never knew you were going to get pretty miserable regular season, kind of similar to the Inferno. But once Captain Ryan Cadigan stated that we weren't going to lose another game, we didn't, and we really played our best basketball at the right time. And Ryan had a legacy game. I mean, in the championship, Ryan had me, Andrew, and Luke, and Ian had Sean, Arvid, and Ian, and that Ryan still got that win, which is an incredible game for his legacy. So yeah, just a roller coaster season, but ended at the top.
I think the funniest thing was that we were the laughing stock of the league because we had such a bad well, two reasons. One, we had the worst record in the league, and we were the ones who tried the hardest. We were the ones who held practices every week, watched film, we'd go to team dinners. And obviously everyone knew that. So we definitely deserved the shit, and we got ripped apart, and rightfully so. The jokes were funny, and winning was awesome because hard work pays off. We'll leave it at that. And after that, we were the longest reigning ASL champions because it was the 2020 year, and that's when COVID happened. So we held that trophy for 2 years, and then we ended up giving it to the Teeny Weenies.
I mean, this was you're hearing seasons of roller coaster seasons. They finished strong at the end. This is not what happened with the Teeny Weenies. They were the best team from start to finish, and they showed it. It was Steve Shaw's first season since a bit of a controversial ending to his first one that we're not going to get into, but he came back and he busted his ass, and he showed that he can be the best player whenever he wants to be, and he almost scored all 21 points in the championship game, which
That
says all you need to
performance
know
was
about him.
regal.
But one thing you can't take away is that Pat and AJ also had significant roles in that title. They both really that trio complemented each other so well. It's honestly a blessing they're broken up because they probably never would have lost. So they all pulled their weight, but yeah, Steven Shaw just took the league in the palm of his hand and toyed with it, and they got the ring.
And Destroy Troy was actually a really good addition to that team
Yeah,
because AJ and Pat didn't show up as consistently as they do now, and Steven really stepped up week after week. The two Stevens were actually like a pretty good unsung duo.
that's right. Yeah, Steve. Yeah, he pulled his weight on defense.
That
He
was
did.
Steven's
He
best
didn't.
season.
Yeah, yeah. No, he had a great year too. That's right. And he played a good amount of full games. That's right.
And then obviously that brings us to last year. The reigning champs again, except take away Stephen Troy and add Pete Styles with the Funky Monkeys.
I mean, yeah, pretty similar to they had a pretty similar season to the Teeny Weenies. They dominated from start to finish. Obviously, they had Pete Stylos instead of Stephen Troy, but also I think Pat and AJ improved that season too. Not like they were great. One of the Teeny Weenies, they were even better on the Funky Monkeys. Steve Shaw got hurt for a period of time, and both of them showed that they're not just products of Steve Shaw drawing all the defensive attention. They're actually have their own ASL identity, and they're good players, and they could do it anywhere. And unfortunately, Pete had a tough injury and had to miss the finals run. But the beginning of the season when he played, he did anything you could have wanted from your fourth man. So overall, just a great season from them. They deserved it, and it's as I said, it's a blessing that trio, that main trio, is broken up because they were just unbeatable.
Absolutely. Well, we kind of covered all of our ground. Mike, thanks for jumping on for this bonus episode before double header weekend, and we will see you guys next week. It was a pleasure.